The biggest scam in the history of mankind. Phenomenal video made by Mike Maloney. Episode number 4. I'm going to put a link below. I recommend and encourage everybody watch it. I'm going to do a brief overview on this video, just the first section. Mike really talks about how money and how currency is printed and how money works when it comes to the U.S. economy. Now, on a big picture scale, a lot of people say and ask, hey, the Federal Reserve, they print money. We have a lot of, inflation going on right now in the U.S. economy. Now, what does that mean? How does money actually get printed? Everything starts with deficit spending. So let's say you have two politicians, they both make promises and one gets voted in and he has to earn up to a lot of his promises, and that requires money. Really, that's deficit spending, right? How that money gets played into the U.S. economy when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to roads, anything to do with any promises that a politician makes. Now, the real definition that's with deficit spending, where the U.S. Treasury borrows currency by issuing bonds. That's the definition of deficit spending. Now, what is a bond? Think of a bond as a glorified IOU. That's where you have the U.S. Treasury say, hey, look, for example, loan me $10 billion and I promise to pay you back within 10 years plus some interest. What most people don't really understand is that U.S. Treasury bonds are our national debt. Right now, we're a little over $31 trillion in U.S. debt. Now, how does the government pay them back? Right? How does that debt that they borrow through these IOUs get paid back? Well, that's through taxation. That's you and I paying that back through our taxes. So simply put, when the U.S. government issues a bond, Mike likes to say it steals prosperity from the future so that it could spend it today. So really, what happens next, right? Once they quest and get these bonds? Well, the Treasury holds a bond auction. And the world's largest banks, they get together and they compete to buy these bonds to make a profit and a little bit of interest in earnings. So as they're going through and these big banks buy these bonds, they do it through, they call it open market operations. And then they sell those bonds to the Federal Reserve at a profit, of course. And now, how does that work? How does the Federal Reserve now purchase these bonds from the banks that were purchased through the U.S. Treasury? Well, they also write IOUs. The Federal Reserve writes a check. And when you or I write a check, we have to have the money in our account in order for it not to bounce. Well, the Federal Reserve, they don't operate that way. It's essentially a check that's, I want to say, blank with a zero balance on there, but they just purchase it by writing a check. So that, on a big picture scale, if you're looking at how money is created, it's the U.S. Treasury issues IOUs, bonds. The banks then buy those bonds with currency. Then the Federal Reserve writes an IOU, a check, and hands that check to the banks in exchange for the U.S. Treasury's IOUs, and that's how money is created. So to put it shortly, the U.S. Treasury is swapping IOUs with the Federal Reserve using the banks as middlemen, and currency is sprung into existence. So this process happens over and over and over again, which is really enriching the bigger banks and indebting the public when it comes to raising the national debt. And that debt has to get paid off by us paying those taxes, which as of right now, it's impossible for us to even scrape the interest that we owe on that national debt.